Hi, I'm Judith Cassel-Mamet, and I have a really simple brush lettering technique for you that works great in case you want to do something for the holidays. The setup is best if you practice on watercolor paper. You can always work on a paper bag or toned paper as you master the technique. You'll need a paintbrush that is a water chamber brush. I like this Arteza because the chamber is nice and big, and so as I'm writing, I don't have to refill as often. You need a basic set of watercolors. If you have some iridescent watercolors sitting in your drawer, squeeze them out and put them on a plate, or find that little palette you had probably at some point of metallic colors, because that works great as well. Also be sure you have some paper towel. To start, just practice how much pressure it takes to squeeze the chamber of your brush to let a bead of water come out. Once you get that bead, drag your brush so that you create a bead of water on your page. What you're going to do with that bead is basically touch your pigment, your wet watercolor pigment, onto the bead, and you'll see that it does move with where the water has gone. So we can use that technique in writing. I'm going to just create the letter J by pulling the brush towards me as the water comes out. So I'm squeezing as I'm creating that letter. I'm squeezing my fingers so that the bead of water comes out, and then I touch it with the pigment and it flows in the area that the water was. Now sometimes you have to nudge it along a little bit and kind of help it. Like right here, I'll just kind of push that along. If you get a big puddle, and you're done writing the letter and you've got a giant puddle and it's going to take 3 days to dry, just take your paper towel and touch it to the puddle. The water will absorb up, but you'll leave the pigment. Okay, let's do the letter O. I want a clean brush, and now I'm going to pull my bead of water around, and I'm going to let my paint fill up that bead. And you can change colors, you can play with all kinds of things, and let those flow together. And now the final letter is the letter Y, and I've got the bead coming out, and I'll just do a little curve like that. And this has got a little wobbly, so I'll just kind of blend it. Okay, and on that one, I'm just going to touch it with the yellow and get that to kind of run around, and then maybe add a little green, and now I've got a rainbow of joy. Now this part here is a little too puddly, so I'm just going to take my paper towel and touch it to that area to suck up some of that paint. Okay, that's going to totally dry, and then I'm going to add some really fun layers. Okay, my demonstration up here is totally dry. I did a second one using those iridescent watercolors, and you can see there's some shimmer to them, not too much, but still fun. Now what you're going to do for the second layer is to create a puddle of Payne's Gray, and I always test my color to see if is that as light as I want to get it, and the answer is yes. And I'm just going to use my paintbrush, and I'm going to paint along the left side of each of the strokes, and I want my gray to be pretty light. And you'll see that what's happening, and I'm not going right up, I'm leaving a little white in some areas, and that's going to give it the appearance of creating a shadow so that it looks like my letters are lifted off the page. And not a big deal that I just goofed up over there and touched the letter, but where you have the white, it's just going to look more like a shadow. So you come close, but not try to stay away from being right against the letter. Okay, so my shadow is created by adding that Payne's Gray. Now another way to get the shadow, if you happen to have a light gray marker, and this is one by Tombow. It's not as light as the Payne's Gray, but it'll still work. This I can control just a little easier, and I'm going to come along the line, again leaving a tiny bit of white And just make sure you work on the same side of the stroke on each letter. And that too is going to give it the feeling that the letter is up off the page. Now, that's the second layer. The first layer was creating the letters. The second layer is adding the gray shadow. For the third layer, I'm going to go in and mix a puddle of color with a lot of pigment. And I get a really nice big puddle here. And then I put it on my brush and I simply tap the brush. I love that additional zhuzhing. I just think those little splatters just liven it up a little bit. And now we have to let that totally dry before we add the secret sauce, which is this pen made by Spectrum called the Spectrum Noir glitter brush. It goes on clear, and there's all kinds of fun shimmer in that. And as soon as this is dry, we'll go over the letters with the Spectrum Noir pen. Okay, this is the secret sauce. My Spectrum Noir, I'm just going to go over my letters. And it may bleed some of that splatter, which is fine. Gosh, I hope you can see how pretty this is. The way that the sparkles are kind of moving around in there. And this too will sit on top of the watercolor until it totally dries and is absorbed in. As I'm doing this, just like with the water chamber brush, I'm squeezing my fingers because this chamber is flexible, and if I squeeze it, I can get a lot more of the shimmery liquid to come out. So I'm just directing where I want it, getting things to be really sparkly. And this is a lovely message for the holidays. I hope you enjoy. Check out my website, www.jcmamet, for a list of the materials and a link to purchase them on either Amazon or Dick Blick, two companies that I am an affiliate with. Happy holidays.